but police say they were following 2 leads. Those 2 leads did not end up turning anything up, so they will continue investigating this situation.
The healthcare.gov webpage opened up to the public on October 1st, but I tried to log on this morning and encountered the same issue millions of Americans have had with this site.
They'll have another public meeting next month. In the meantime, we invite you to go onto our Facebook page and our website. There we posted the plans, and you can comment and you can take a look for yourself.
Now, the budget comes in a booklet about this big, but we'll go ahead and get to some of the highlights. But it will monitor the bacteria in the water, and they'll get that back tomorrow. But in the meantime, they're going to have school, but they're going to be using bottled water. After a political donor gives to a campaign, it shows up here in Missouri Ethics Commission records.
And as you can see, here are the cheese fries, and they look about as good as advertised.
Let's take this jar for a second and pretend it's the state's general revenue fund. I'll take away $1 to illustrate a reduction in income tax liability for the company. MoDOT told lawmakers that accidents are at historic lows and Missourians are relatively satisfied with the department, but Director Dave Nichols painted a grim picture of the department's finances. Even this one, traffic has been crawling along since this afternoon. Now, the weather conditions have kind of sapped the fun out of Friday night so far. At a new stamping plant where Ford workers make Ford Transit vans. It's actually a new model for the company. Now, as you can see behind us, auto workers are starting to pile in here. It's not every day the commander-in-chief clocks in for your shift. Today, I wanted to dive in after hearing the State of the State on Tuesday night and figure out what would the district do with $6 million.
Our state schools teach our kids how to crunch the numbers, everything from basic adding and subtracting to more complex operations, lessons they'll need every day for the rest of their lives. For those who craft budgets for schools, the main operation they've seen their state government perform is subtraction. The state's piece of Columbia Public Schools' pie has shrunk over the years. The district's main money man welcomes the governor's push for higher funding.
He recognizes that it is a true economic force. It is a driving force. And for a lot of communities, and definitely a community like Columbia.
In the current state budget year, Columbia received about $48 million. Under Nixon's proposed budget, the district would receive about $6 million more next year. Sessions says Columbia has been spending because it's growing. Any increase in state revenue could allow the district to invest more in its people through higher teacher salaries and smaller classrooms. Republican lawmakers say if Nixon's budget was a book, it would be fiction.
He wants to spend upwards of closer actually to $800 million new dollars from last year. As opposed to last year's budget, the legislature, the number that we've agreed on is more around $400 million.
Republicans would like to trim the budget in the next few months to spending levels they say would be more realistic. In rural Missouri, thousands of workers are digging into the soil and rock to funnel fossil fuel through the Show Me State. They're laying the Flanagan South Pipeline, which will carry crude oil from the tar sands of Canada to the refineries of the U.S. Gulf Coast. The workers need a place to stay and hearty meals after long workdays. In Moberly, restaurants, hotels, and other businesses have added staff to respond to increased demand.
It is millions of dollars of payroll in the multi-county region that hadn't been there this time before.
When finished, the pipeline will carry 600,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Enbridge has invested $2.6 billion to build it. The new pipeline will join an existing one in Illinois, cross the Mississippi River, and roll from northeast to southwest through 11 Missouri counties before reaching Kansas and then Oklahoma. Enbridge negotiated with landowners and worked at making this a reality for 2 years, but not all Missourians are assured it should cut under the state's land and streams. In Michigan, one of Enbridge's pipelines with the costliest oil spills in U.S. history. The Army Corps of Engineers approved the Flanagan South Pipeline using a speedy approval process called a nationwide permit, which does not require public comment and deems a project will have minimal environmental impact.
What they're doing right now is they're trying to...
In St. Louis, one attorney is suing the Corps for not disclosing to him how the project got approved and questions why the Corps treated each stream crossing as a separate project.
But when you add the whole thing up, and 2,000 stream crossings is 600 miles of pipeline, that's not a minimal project. That's a major project that should be subject to stricter regulation and a little public scrutiny.
After the dust settles and the workers leave next year, environmental groups with voluntary structure. Overall, Enbridge says Missourians have been very supportive of the project because they are seeing what energy independence looks like.
We're getting this crude from a North American source, which is on those more volatile sources from overseas. And so consumers understand there's a larger demand and therefore the need for this additional infrastructure.
The construction phase will last less than a year, taking that specific economic boost with it. But the company says this pipeline is a symbol of how America can re-energize for the future. Nick Thompson, KMU8 News, Johnson County.
Any of that motion shall prevail, say aye. Aye.
The policy-making process in Jefferson City often moves slow. But in a recent special session, Governor Jay Nixon moved a Boeing incentive plan to the runway, and it quickly took off. Missouri is trying to build this plane, the 777X, in Missouri. Missouri, a state with a long legacy in aviation, has put its final offer on the table and will wait to hear if it beats out other states like Kansas and Alabama.
There are really only two significant producers of commercial aircraft in the world, Airbus and Boeing. And so in that sense, I want America to win. I want Missouri to win.
Labor unions told lawmakers they're ready to build the facility quickly if Missouri is chosen, and skilled workers are ready to put planes together. Boeing expects to create tens of thousands of jobs wherever it decides to build.
The governor's staff met with lawmakers behind closed doors to tell them Boeing would create a significant return on investment for Missouri taxpayers. Let's take this jar for a second and pretend it's the state's general revenue fund. I'll take away $1 to illustrate a reduction in income tax liability for the company. But the governor's staff says that for every $1 in tax breaks, the company would generate an additional $2 in income tax revenue because it would create a lot of high-paying jobs and increase economic activity.
A lot of lawmakers couldn't pass up this opportunity, and in a one-week session it passed the House and Senate with simple majorities. But Republican Senator Kurt Schaefer of Columbia voted no, like a few other Republican senators, after an old quarrel over corporate welfare in the Capitol. Missouri has 61 tax credit programs to encourage certain economic activity. In recent years, the state has given out as much as $630 million worth of tax breaks. That's equivalent to roughly a 12th of the state's general revenue. And every time Missouri gives out tax breaks, it's less money it can use for schools, mental health services, or health care for the poor. Schaefer's no vote cautions that the state has to be careful putting all its eggs in the St. Louis area's basket.
Anytime that you look at giving basically all of your economic incentives to just one part of the state, you certainly have a concern about what it means for the rest of the state that doesn't benefit either directly from that or actually loses the opportunity for economic development possibilities down the road.
Busy time for all of us. And the remaining
The Boeing plan almost didn't pass the Senate because in that chamber a few senators can lead a filibuster. Schaefer and others would have preferred a proposal to trim other tax breaks if Boeing got the deal. Nixon countered. He privately met with those lawmakers and somehow twisted arms. Some wish the governor would have just signed a bill to cut taxes for everyone instead of one company. Nixon had that opportunity with a business and personal income tax cut bill in May, but he was strongly against that and vetoed it. Ray McCarty would have preferred that tax cut for all Missouri businesses, but he's glad Boeing would provide opportunities for smaller companies.
Even though Boeing is located in the St. Louis area, we know there are a lot of suppliers all over the state, many of them in small towns that make pieces for machinery that is now being manufactured by Boeing.
Boeing may not land in Missouri, but the special session triggered talks about taxes, labor unions, and how the Show Me State favors certain businesses. Nick Thompson, KMU8 News, Jefferson City.